I made one of the worst Sonic Robo Blast 2 maps of all time, at least among custom maps that got released back when SRB2 2.0.6 was the most recent version of the game, and OLDC stood for Official Level Design Contest, not Collab. Let's set the scene real quick. It's November of 2011. There's been an announcement saying that the last OLDC of the year will also be the last time ever that people can submit multiplayer circuit maps. Thus, the SRB2 community got to work on ending Circuit's presence in the OLDC on a high note, including myself. There I was, in my bedroom, wanting to make my own submission. It's a few days before the deadline to submit, and I felt like I just needed to do something. I'd already submitted a match map for that OLDC, and I figured, why not? It's gonna be a rush job, but at least I did something. The end result was so awful, so disturbing, and so blah. In retrospect, I'm surprised it didn't get kicked out of that OLDC entirely. I might as well get right to it. May I present to you an old creation of mine in all its questionable glory, the end of Circuit. At least it works? At least it's simple? At least it's possible to complete in a decent time? Ugh, who am I kidding? Trying to find any positives regarding the end of Circuit is missing the point entirely. See, this was intended as a joke map. Something that was deliberately awful but still might get a laugh out of a few people. True, I was pointing and laughing at it while playing it, but the thing is, it's not that funny. It's just bad. Perhaps even forgettable in the grand scheme of things, although it's long since been immortalized on the SRB2 Wiki's page on Joke Wads. There's nothing that really stands out here aside from, well, the ridiculous graphics. It's a boring circuit map. No gimmicks, just a blatant rush job with a sparkly coat of paint. I'm sure 17-year-old me, struggling with depression and learning the basics of friendship from Twilight Sparkle, saw this as a ha-ha funny shitpost, but 29-year-old me, struggling with depression, extra broke, and learning the basics of friendship from Izuku Midoriya sees this as, well, I just said it, it's forgettable. There's an old saying that goes a little something like this. Sometimes it's better to keep your mouth shut than to say something that'll wind up cratering you in the long run. The truly funny thing about this map, though, in the OLDC it was submitted to, the end of Circuit actually tied for worst map in its division after all the votes came in, with a score of 1.14 out of 10. The other map that scored 1.14 was Mountainside Green Zone. There were 10 circuit maps submitted for that particular OLDC, only 2 of which scored above 5. The winner, Castle Land Zone, scored 5.83, and second place was Unstable Icicle Zone with 5.33. Only one other map, Black Magic Workshop Zone, scored above a 4 with 4.33. That's not to say there weren't great maps submitted elsewhere in that OLDC. The aforementioned Castle Land and Unstable Icicle Zones were, and are, pretty good. The winning maps in the single player and CTF categories scored above 7. Sure, there was only a handful of maps submitted for those categories, as well as match, but most maps outside of Circuit were, at the very least, pretty decent. But because there were so many rush jobs and mediocre maps being submitted to the OLDCs of the time, not to mention a noticeable decline in quantity and interest, the OLDC was, starting in late 2012, suspended until the release of SRB2 2.1. The end of Circuit definitely contributed to that suspension, and I sincerely apologize for that. It remains one of the worst OLDC maps of that time, but not the worst, at least judging purely by voting results. There's also the fact that SRB2 wasn't as popular then as it is now. Maybe that was a good thing. It meant that less people knew of the end of Circuit's existence. Well, now that this video exists, that's all torn to pieces. Hey, at least I can point and laugh at it and hopefully get tons of clicks. and maybe I was being too harsh on both it and myself here. I'm sure that these days, the end of Circuit is nothing more than an interesting footnote in the long and storied history of Sonic Robo Blast 2. Many of you might have not even known that it existed before clicking on this video. I only hope you were pointing and laughing with me at both my past self and a terrible shitpost he made one time. Man, I really was a different person in those days. For the sake of preservation, I'll toss up a link in this video's description to a place where you can download the end of Circuit. Just know that this map was intended for SRB2 2.0, and playing this in any version of SRB2 above 2.0 might break stuff. And thus, we've reached the end of Circuit. Thank you for watching, and if you enjoyed this, I have some more SRB2 related stuff coming down the pipeline in addition to all the stuff I usually do on YouTube. Get subscribed for that. You can also like this video, share it with your friends, leave a comment if you want, all the typical supporting YouTuber stuff. If you want to throw some money at me, I have a Patreon and a Ko-fi that are super thirsty at this moment. Links to those, and to places where you can commission me to draw you some lewd starbound OCs or whatever, will be in the description. Take care of yourselves, and goodbye for now.